What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk Podcast. Combine week is ongoing. We got boots in the ground, but different boots today. We got Khari Thompson from Boston.com joining us, and also Henry McKenna from USA Today. He's going to join us as well. Been covering the Patriots for a long time. We figured we'd get Phil a little bit of a blow and get some of the younger voices on this beat in here so you can have a perspective that isn't just Phil and Tom and Phil all the time. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy. We'll bring these guys in right now. All right, and here they are. Henry McKenna, Khari Thompson. Fellas, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, you're at the Combine, Khari. How's it going so far? How many Combines have you been to?
So this is my first one. So I'm kind of still wandering around here like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? But hey, having a good time with it. And it's going to be interesting watching these guys work out today.
It is a weird beast, isn't it? To try and figure out what should I be doing? The bottom line is get something. Just get something by the end of the day. Henry McKenna, I worked with him at NBC Sports Boston earlier last decade now. But he is one of the most determined questioners of Bill Belichick that I've encountered. And I've often said, Henry, you're doing it exactly right. Bill sees you start to open your mouth and he starts to go, oh no, here comes Henry. But I love the way you do your job. Henry, welcome. How did you give me your path from when I knew you to where you are now and what you do now?
Yeah. So, going back to my first day at NBC Sports Boston, I was like a part-time copy editor there.
What year was that?
Gosh, maybe like 2015 or something, somewhere around there. I remember shaking your hand being like, you introduced yourself. I was like, I know who you are. Obviously I'd been reading you for a while and you had like that Cheshire cat grin. And then, I was working there for a while. I was writing all over the place, doing some freelance work, whether it was like The Atlantic. I was writing about like surgeons who turned toes into thumbs. I was writing travel essays for Vice. I was writing about the Stanford band for Sports Illustrated. So all sorts of like weird freelance projects. I actually got a job where Khari works at Boston.com, working pro sports beat there, just like covering all four beats. And then after about a year and a half there, USA Today was launching these wire sites. And so I run Patriots Wire. I've ascended to like a regional editor role, whatever that means. But I still cover the Patriots full time.
All right. You do a kick-ass job of it too. As I said, whether it's, the day-to-day or some of the bigger picture things, I think you do an excellent job, Henry, of making sure that you are critically thinking about a team that people really, really, really passionately enjoy. And I think that's one of the things that, to critically analyze this team, because we're so lucky to cover it. It's been so friggin' good, but you can't say, well, it was great. We don't want to put their feet to the fire. No, they've been great. And it would be fun if they remain great. Khari, you're originally from Chicago. You're at Boston.com now. Tell us a little bit about you, will you?
Well, I was going to say, I'm not used to regularly being around a good football team. So y'all are spoiled in that way. For me, I was a scientist originally. So I went to University of Chicago to study earth science and bone biology and things like that. I went to graduate school. I got a master's in that. I remember I did my first and only first author research paper on like mouse skulls in 2017, started 2017. And I was just like, man, I need to get up out of this. And so I had been doing some sports blogging on the side back like in 2016. I had started doing it. First thing I ever wrote, I think, was on Jalen Smith getting hurt in the bowl season that year.
Notre Dame guy, right?
Yeah, Notre Dame, and what his draft prospects were going to be. And it really took off from there. I covered my first training camp in 2016 with the Chicago Bears, Jay Cutler's last year in Chicago. And I like to take credit for the fact that I knew Jordan Howard was the best running back on that team in the 2 days that I spent there, right? And he ends up starting and breaking the rookie rushing record. But from there, I just I decided to go all in with it. Ended out here in Boston doing public media to start things off, but kept on writing. I was doing some independent stuff where I really started to dive into, film breakdowns and analysis and digging into the advanced stats. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm ready to do it for real. So joined Boston.com last year and, ran into y'all at training camp this past year and, got my first taste of what it's like to cover the Patriots. And, it's pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah. Khari and I had a great time up on the hill and in the stands. Actually, this was an in the stands season because we were still, hopefully we'll be back on the hill a little bit more. No, we were on the hill.
Yeah, we were on the hill. And I mean,
it all blends together. I think I met you in the stands at minicamp.
Yeah. You met me in the stands in minicamp. We were on the hill in training camp. And even afterwards, we were just kind of just like, okay, this whole Mac Jones thing, like he's kind of playing better than like Cam Newton right now. Are they really going to do this?
Yeah, I mean, every day, right?
Every practice.
Every day, Henry, right? You're just sitting there and you're like, am I real? Is he real? Why is he getting the ball out so quick? Why are are they dumbing it down for him? It's why does it look so easy, right, Henry?
Yeah, I remember watching Jacoby Brissett, watching Jimmy Garoppolo.
Exactly.
Jared Stidham. You can name pretty much any quarterback, and there was not a single one who was processing the playbook and the field at the level that we were seeing Mac Jones do it. And so I think back to, I might have even been standing next to you and Mike Reese during this practice, during the Giants joint practice. And that was when I think, because Cam missed it because of a violation of COVID protocols, that was the turning point for Mac Jones's early career. That was when he won the job. So
I think we all knew that was it.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah, Mac didn't look back, and it wasn't that he was like remarkably good. It was that he was probably better than Cam, and he was definitely getting better every single day. Like we hear that cliche from players all the time. I just want to get better every day. But like few players can actually do it. And Mac Jones at that point in his career was genuinely doing it. It was pretty wild to see.
Yeah, it was the bounce back too. If you remember that in that practice, Cam actually had a decent drive down the field. Was it against?
So that
was back for the last Giants practice.
Yeah, it was the second Giants practice. So Cam has a solid drive to start off. It's like quick, efficient, and then I know Mac threw a pick in that one, but then and then he had that just sloggy, like sloppy. It wasn't all on him, right? But
he kept being in 3rd and 8 or 4th and 5, and he'd convert. 3rd and 8, every 4th time. And 5, and he'd convert. It was and that to me has been the one thing about him that I think has set him apart is you keep waiting for, okay, well, there's a shit play or there's a shit game and it's going to compound, and it doesn't. And that to me is what's going to be fascinating to see going forward as we talk about so many transitions this team is going through, especially with the people who are in charge of the care and feeding of Mac Jones, to take care and make sure that he continues on that same route. So I'm going to flip around my little plan of what I had sent to you guys. And since we're kind of heading that way anyway, here's some sound from Josh McDaniels talking at the Combine about Mac Jones.
Mac's a great kid. I don't know the situation, what's is or isn't going on anywhere else, but Mac's a great kid. Works extremely hard. I was really fortunate to have a chance to coach him. And the people that had touched Mac Jones prior to him coming to New England, deserve a tremendous amount of credit. The people that coached him in high school, the people that coached him, at Alabama, the parents that raised him, they did a great job with him as a human being. And I'm not sure I've been around a more mature young football player in terms of understanding the game and being able to process at such a speed and such a level that Mac was. So I don't have any doubt that Mac's going to meet the challenge head on. I wish him nothing but the best, and I'll be pulling for him except when he plays Vegas next year.
So this has to be a concern to the Patriots, and I'm sure that there's a plan. And I'm sure that it's not ideal to lose the best offensive coordinator in the NFL, one of the best coaches overall in the NFL, but transitions happen. Whether or not their plan is good, slapdash, whatever, we're going to find out. But when we talk about concerns for the 2022 Patriots, If I had to put these out there to you, the coaching staff, brain drain, max development, talent on both sides of the ball. Khari, which one of those would you put at the top?
For me, it's the offensive coaching, because Mac Jones is the most important piece of this puzzle. I mean, Eric DaCosta of the Ravens said it best. It's really hard to win in the NFL without a blue chip quarterback, right? And the thing is, we don't know yet if he's a blue chip top 5, top 10, quarterback for the next 10 years or anything like that. But that he can play the position. Now it's your job to find out how well he can play that position. How good is he actually? And I asked Josh McDaniels about the fact that he has had 4 he's going to now go into his 4th straight year with a new starting quarterback, and how he balances how he balances both his offensive concepts, but also how you build around a guy's strengths. And his answer was just perfectly Josh McDaniels. It's look, we build a foundation, we get the language down, but look, I'm going to adapt to what my guy needs, right? How do we know that they are going to be able to do that in the same way for Mac Jones? This guy would come off the field in training camp and come off the field during games, and the first person he goes to is Josh McDaniels, right? And I was talking to Phil about this last night. They're texting each other at all hours of the night, just scheming and putting things together, and just like, oh man, I just had this thought about how we should attack this. You have to now build that again with a new person. And if that person is like Joe Judge, what does Joe Judge know about developing quarterbacks? Is Daniel Jones get better under him? So no, that's a huge deal for me.
That's the thing. Sorry, Khari. I wanted to bring Henry in too, and I apologize for interrupting. But Nick Caley, I think, is probably going to start to get more run. And Julian Edelman, I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago with the Super Bowl, and he thought very highly of Nick Caley. So, Henry, I look at this, I pose the same question to you about those 3 different things. But if you want to keep going on the Mac train and the development train, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to say there. So Khari was noting sort of the correlation between the offensive brain drain and the development of Mac Jones, because they're totally intertwined. There's no separating one from the other. As far as Nick Caley goes, I'm a guy, if people follow me on Twitter, that they'll know that I like to read between the lines of what's happening in New England. So my theory with Caley, we see a number of offensive coaching assistants leaving for Las Vegas, and Caley is one of the most experienced ones who does not leave, right? So what does that say? In my mind, I'm wondering, it's probably one of 2 things. It's either McDaniels didn't view Caley as being at the same level as the other assistants he brought. But you look at the resume, you look at the tight end position, which is so crucial in New England's offense, and you think, okay, maybe that's not what's happening. So it's probably the opposite. It's probably that McDaniels had a list of guys he wanted, and Belichick had a list of guys that McDaniels could not take. So I'm wondering if maybe Belichick was like, Caley's my guy, you cannot take him. The rest, go ahead. And so that's why I think we might see a massive emphasis on him. You're right, Khari. Joe Judge is not ready to develop a quarterback. That's just not his game. He's a coordinator, special teams coordinator. He had the receivers for a year in New England, and then he went on to be, the Giants head coach. Clearly a leader, but the Patriots need someone to replace Josh McDaniels' ability as like bringing up quarterbacks. I mean, look at his resume. He's been so good at it. And so you look at now Nick Caley and you hope that he's the guy that can do it. Maybe Matt Patricia, but again, not a guy that has a reputation for getting the most out of quarterbacks. So Mac Jones's development is going to be crucial, especially in bringing in the third thing you were talking about, Tom, which is a lack of talent on both sides of the ball. The Patriots don't have a lot of money going into free agency, and they have a big impending free agent class, including 3 of their captains, Dante Hightower, Devin McCourty, Matthew Slater, all headed to free agency. And then we haven't even talked about JC Jackson, which we will. I think Mac Jones is more important than ever. They were able to de-emphasize him last year through the offensive game plan because Josh McDaniels is so talented. And now what? Now he's got to be the emphasis. Now they need to ask more out of him to win games and not just manage them.
Yeah, I think when you look at this too, if you look at Mac Jones, and that's a very good point in a way of looking at it, is you need stable positions on your football team. Where are the stable areas? Well, running game's stable. The personnel on the offensive line is stable. You need to bring Trent Brown back to most likely ensure that, but stable. Running game, offensive line. Ivan Fears is gone. Carmen Brasilia is gone. What kind of negation of that stability is present because they've lost their coaches? Mac Jones, you figure you got a stable guy there. You do have a stable guy there. But you've lost, again, a massive brain. Now, it never goes to zero. People have to understand that, whether you're talking about J.C. Jackson or Josh McDaniels. They leave, you never go back to zero. So when people go, how are you going to replace him? Somebody's going to do the job, and somebody's not going to do it like a complete boob, but it might not measure up. It might not be replicable, but it will be replaceable. So when we look at who's going to work on it, I would not be surprised if this is what happens. Nick Caley's the unnamed OC. He's getting plenty of input, help, assistance, deployment from Joe Judge and Matt Patricia. But the guy that he leans on the most will be Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I agree.
Bill Belichick is going to go to the offensive side of the ball. He's going to meet with Mac as much as he can. Do you know who weekly used to meet with Brady? It would be
Belichick.
Bill.
Yeah.
You know who stopped meeting with Brady in 2019 and 2019? Belichick. It was a Caserio deal.
Huh.
This was another instance of,
Weird.
nothing to do it, buddy.
Well, not weird,
Anyway.
but makes sense. Yeah.
But he'll be back because he understands it. The shit that we talk about, and I think we all understand this ourselves as we talk about it, we know that everything we talk about has long ago occurred to Bill Belichick. So it's not like when we say, what are they going to do? Yeah, he's thought of it. But how well will it work? We give him the benefit of the doubt. He's earned it with 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 Super Bowl wins. But also, there's a point at which the benefit of the doubt does come with, but you haven't drafted real well. In the last 3 years, the team hasn't closed the season well. And the team absolutely face planted at the end of last year and was undisciplined in many ways in an uncharacteristic way. So that's why the critical thinking and analysis is necessary. All right, let's put a cork in Mac for now. Henry, you mentioned J.C. Jackson. Khari, I wrote a story the other day talking about JC and the fact that he could be a bit of a luxury item. Phil and I talked about that too. Real good corner, not a shutdown corner, not an elite corner, and you can look at the Stephon Diggs numbers. Productive as hell. But as a $17 million guy at the back end of your defense, the way to go, especially if you franchise him and all the hoops you have to jump through. Khari and I are on the same page there. Hank, give me your thoughts on J.C. Jackson and the smartest way for the Patriots to approach his pending free agency.
They're just damned if they do and damned if they don't. Every single way that they cut this. Let's say they throw the franchise tag on him. That decision eliminates most possibilities that they bring back the rest of that important free agent class I was just alluding to. And I mean, Devin McCourty, you lose that guy to keep J.C. Jackson, and you really can't add anyone else. So if it's a piecemeal thing where you can get rid of J.C. Jackson, you can add a number of the free agents, retain a number of the free agents, try and make it work in the secondary by adding a depth of options. So, but then it's a really nice idea on paper, but then when you have to actually coach the veterans or whatever, the cast-offs, like the Adrian Phillips, it works so well, but we've seen so many times where it really doesn't work well. And there's a reason why these guys are coming at a discount and they struggle. So that's sort of like one scenario. I would say you could try and sign him to a long-term deal. We don't really see Bill Belichick do that with guys that he like made. In the case of J.C. Jackson, Trey Flowers, Malcolm Butler, there are guys that he created. He thinks he can do it again. And he's got a pretty darn good track record to do it. So then what about if you tag and trade J.C. Jackson? Because we've seen major compensation come in return for guys that get tagged. and then ultimately get spun around. The problem with that is that the Patriots are, just by tagging Jackson at this very moment, they'd be well over the salary cap and spending. So they'd be moving things around just to get Jackson under the cap. And then if they're heading into free agency, which by the way is only 2 weeks away, they'd have to trade Jackson before they start making moves in free agency. Now, I don't think they're going to be super active anyway, but if you're going to move Jackson, teams know that you are sort of like in a logjam, and they can use that as leverage not to give you the compensation that you want. So there's really no safe way to proceed with Jackson except to maybe let him go. I like the idea of tagging him for 1 year, kind of like what they did with Joe Thuney. I like the idea of using that as a bridge year, but I don't know how much money Bill Belichick can free up to make that legitimate. So until Belichick starts, and if he even tries, he may not, moving money around, it's kind of impossible to know how many other free agents they can either retain or bring in after tagging Jackson.
Yeah, the Thuney situation was interesting too, because Khari, they tagged him in 2020. And that was done with the hope that, okay, Brady's going to stay. We can't let Joe Thuney go. It's just going to be a signal to Brady that, you know, if he hits free agency, Brady's going to go too. So they tagged him before Brady made his announcement that he was going to head out. And then they kind of got stuck holding the bag. They intended and wanted to extend Joe Thuney during that offseason going forward. But then once Brady left, I think Joe Thuney said, I'll take my money this year and go elsewhere. Khari, I look at it, the best scenario for the Patriots is if J.C. Jackson takes offer him he's going to be 27, offer him 3 and 52. 16, is that right? Yeah. So it's a lot, but that way you bring this year's number down because you can monkey around with it. You don't think it's a $17 million hit. And then you can get him back on the market when he's still young enough to cash in if he continues to play at a certain level. Whether he bite or not, because he might be able to get a $90 million deal someplace else, we'll see. But there's also the opportunity to get 2 bites at the apple. Do you think that has any merit at all?
I mean, I would say that, I'm of the opinion, right, that we haven't heard a whole lot of noise about if they've talked. I've asked a bunch of people about it since I've been here, and the vultures are kind of circling, I hear people talking about Jackson all the time around here at the combine, and teams are kind of getting ready for him to potentially, peace out. Now, the thing with him is I feel like what's going to happen, the 11th hour, or maybe a day or two out from the tag period, right? They'll throw him an offer and it won't be what he wants. It'll be something maybe even less than what you said, right? Or maybe in the neighborhood. And he'll look at it and he'll have to think okay, this is not top cornerback money, but it's good money. And I have, and I've basically got it for at least 2 years, right? And then after that, we'll see. And so I don't know that it is that he would bite on that, but I do think that that's probably what the Patriots will try to do. And it's the more prudent thing to do is, they're going to lowball him. And then it's just a matter of, is he willing to take it or is he not? And with him having had the last 2 years that he's had, he's probably not going to take it. And then you have to make that decision of, do you tag him? The other thing with the tag and trade scenario, right? You mentioned they got kind of stuck holding the bag with Joe Thuney. Imagine what would happen if they tag J.C. Jackson. Free agency is a whole week away, basically after that. And then other teams snap up other corners or, figure that out. And then they're stuck holding the bag with J.C. again.
And it's a draft with corners.
Yeah.
Deep draft.
And exactly. So I would think in the scenario that he doesn't take the kind of deal that you offer, which, it's below what a Tre'Davious White is making, right? He's in the 17, something range. Just not like Jalen Ramsey money, but it's pretty solid money. If he doesn't take that and he wants to get paid, he wants to get overpaid and get that big corner money, then I think the thing to do is let him peace out and then see what you can do with a first or second round pick. And we talk about making guys. I was not enthused about Jalen Mills, and look what they got out of him for an entire season. I'll bet you they believe they could do that again.
100%. I mean,
Especially
we laughed at Miles Bryant had a good game, and then he played like ass. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're not talking about Miles Bryant playing at a high level. I'm not saying he's going to be J.C. Jackson, but no one was saying J.C. Jackson was going to be J.C. Jackson before he became J.C. Jackson, or Jonathan Jones, or Malcolm Butler. So Henry made that point as well. Fully agree with it. I spoke briefly, a little bit offline with Devin McCourty yesterday, because I was doing my little free agent capsules, not just looking at who's out there, but who the Patriots have to deal with on their own team. And when we really scrutinized Devin McCourty, I mentioned this to him. He has not fallen off physically. He had 60 combined tackles. He had 3 picks. He's still the same fast guy. He's still a very short tackler. Obviously, he is the lieutenant and supervisor of everything on the back end. To me, and he is training with the intention of continuing to play football. He has not had conversations with the Patriots, said he'd take 2 months, and the Patriots are that way anyway. They're not going to ring him up. But he's intending to play football in 2022. He's kind of a must-have, Devin is, especially with the uncertainty around J.C. Jackson. Fellas, 1 to 10, Henry, start, and then explain your answer. 1 to 10. How important is retaining Devin McCourty?
You always have to show your work. So I guess this is a conditional, right? You guys have already sort of let the ship sail on JC Jackson. I, meanwhile, believe that cap gymnastics are much more attainable than Bill Belichick has sort of led us to believe. You look at teams like the Saints, who are in cap hell every year, but they just make it work. I could see the Patriots just trying to make that work. But let's say they keep JC Jackson, right? Then I think he's probably like a 7.5 because you have that takeaway creator and that solidifying element in the secondary. Let's say they lose JC Jackson, he's a 10. Devin McCourty is a 10. You need some leadership in the secondary. You need someone who's going to keep the lid on the defense in the event / when, not if, the defense starts showing up holes, especially if you're moving new guys into new places, bringing in new players to be your sort of cornerback 1, or you're just running a lot of zone because you don't have a cornerback 1. But the other thing we talked about is we haven't really talked about is leadership. And Mac Jones, obviously, the emphasis is development, right? Not just as a quarterback, but as, the head of that locker room. And he's going to get there, but at his age, it's just not a natural fit yet. And that's why voices like Devin McCourty are so essential. Not only is he coming in with a high level of play, but he knows how it goes in New England. And he's got a track record of success, so much so that I think people really listening to him, and then they buy in to what Bill Belichick does. A very challenging and rigorous system that not everybody likes doing.
Right. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because that's what he said, because I eventually said, "You're still having fun, right?" So, "Oh yeah, I'm still having fun. I still enjoy playing." And he's still playing at a high level. He said, there's so many things, if you miss a tackle, people ascribe it to your age, when I can look around and see guys missing the same tackle at the age of 28. No one's talking about their age. And I don't think he misses a lot of tackles. I mean, Pro Football Focus, which I lend credence to, had him in the 70s across the board, which is, high level play. Very, very solid starter, borderline Pro Bowl level play at the free safety position. Khari, what's the number on Devin importance-wise?
So I'm around the same ballpark. I would say I was thinking 8, assuming JC Jackson plays, and honestly, like a 12 if JC Jackson is gone. And here's why. Going to get into a little bit of numbers, but I would say if he's going to play, bring him back. I mean, and it's interesting that we're talking about a guy who's going to be 35 in August. And the fact that, as you mentioned, like, he does not look like he's slowed down. He looks like he can competently play the position, like at a high level. And with the Pats, like, yes, they played more zone kind of out of necessity last year, especially after week 7. I was tracking it a little bit, and their zone coverage percentage on Pro Football Focus, their zone coverage percentage in terms of snaps went up like across the board when it came to the cornerbacks. But all things considered, like if you look at the entire season though, and you look at the highest percentages of snaps played in man coverage at the cornerback spot, all 4 of the Patriots that played, significant snaps at corner, Jackson, Jalen Mills, John Jones, and Miles Bryant are all in the top 10 of most man coverage snaps played. So they still want to play man, and they are going to play man. And you need Devin McCourty if you're going to do that. You need a savvy player that is going to be able to erase your mistakes on the back end. The other thing is that having McCourty allows you to deploy those 3 safety, big nickel lineups that they like to use, because his skill set is unique compared to Phillips and Duggar. It's not that they can't play a deep safety or whatever, but they like to move them around and, put them, man on in the slot or drop them down as a box safety and, play like an underneath zone and stuff like that, because you can just put Devin back there and that's it. He's cool.
Security guard, the bouncer, whatever you want to call him back there. It is a fascinating thing. And when you add in other aspects of this too, look, this is a defense that didn't force the Bills to punt in either of the 2 meetings. And we're talking about perhaps J.C. Jackson, their most productive defensive player over the last 2 years, leaving. And perhaps Devin McCourty, who is one of their most competent players, leaving. And there are already issues around that defense. So it's a defense that wasn't playing at a high level. And if you take out 2 of your best players, it ain't going to get that much better. And never mind the fact that Patrick Chung left the year before. And there does still seem to be some uncertainty as to what the pecking order is on the defensive coaching staff. Certainly, as we look at the season, the defensive side of it, we started out lamenting whatever offensive decisions they have to make. And we look at this defense and we finish up lamenting some of the defensive stuff. But again, it's a team that went 10-7 in 2021. It's a team that is in a rebuild, but it doesn't rebuild like the Jaguars. It doesn't rebuild like the Panthers. It doesn't have to go to 2-15 or 2-14. It can bump down to 7-9 and start stuff back and get to 10-7 because it does have a program and an institution in place. They ain't going to suck, but they might not be a hell of a lot better than 10-7 unless the next 3 weeks are great. Well, 7 weeks are great. So, boys, closing thoughts. What do you got, Hank? Appreciate you. This has been fun, buddy. And I do want to say this, too, to folks who are out there listening. One of the reasons Henry and Khari are important to have on, and I'm trying to have more guys on who are on the beat. When I was coming up, there was a ladder for me. I could go from a small paper to a bigger paper to another paper, to the Metro West Daily News, which was a suburban paper, and I could cover my high schools and cover the Patriots at the same time, and I could get exposure, and then I could go to, hopefully, and I did do that, you could go to a Metro paper, which was the Providence Journal for me. There was a ladder. For these guys, as you heard them explain their tracks, and you can hear how talented they are and articulate they are and smart they are and the critical thinking they apply on this, they don't have the same ladder I had. So it's a fight. And I hope you guys appreciated listening to them. But give them a final word here. We'll start with Hank and then Khari.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. We all obviously appreciate you. So obviously let's talk about receivers, right? Like that's what Patriots fans love. And Tom was in our little email exchange was talking about how, I've been fascinated by the combine situation with receivers. Guess what happens on the first day that players start talking? We have quarterbacks and receivers, and the Patriots have met with like every single top 10 receiver. And in some cases, they've met with them before the combine, but for the most part, they've met with them at the combine. And it's a rare situation for Bill Belichick and his scouting department, now run by Matt Groh, brand new to the position of director of player personnel. It's rare for them to let this information slip. And like I said, I like to read between the lines with this organization because I don't think that very many details are unintentional. Mm-hmm. I think there's something happening here. And what I'm not sure, I can't be sure about this because the talent evaluator, the beat writer in me says the Patriots are so clearly in need of a young receiver. They whiffed on N'Keal Harry. Jacoby Myers is a really nice piece, but he's going to be, I think, sticking around on a restricted free agent tender this year. Next year, that means he's an unrestricted free agent. What happens then? We don't know. So Nelson Aguilar, his deal expires in 2023, and I think they'll be happy that it does. But they're going to be looking to fix that position even more than they already have.
So why aren't they going cloak and dagger?
So I wonder, why aren't they?
Yeah, why have they not given these kids the restriction that in the past they would say, STFU, I don't want you out there telling anybody that you met with us. Right. Why are they? Because one thing about the wideouts, and we've done this all week, and I keep reminding people at our shop, I'm like, hey, they're talking all the wideouts because the wideouts are the thing on the buffet right now. They haven't brought out the other dishes yet. They have to talk to the wideouts. So that's part of it. But you're right. It's out there. They're not telling these kids to shut the bleep up. So
it could just be a cultural change. For me, basically the joke I made was everybody knows that the Patriots need a receiver, and Bill Belichick doesn't typically telegraph the pass. So what's he going to do? He's going to draft a linebacker at like every slot in the draft, right? He's going to do the opposite of what he's trying to tell you that he's doing. He's like, look over here, but the guy I want's over here. That's the joke that I made, and I don't know whether there's any merit to it. Like you said, Tom.
When the linebackers come, they're going to talk to all the linebackers too, though.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, it's silly
what's interesting is they're not telling
season.
That he's done with telling guys not to talk, which I think is smart too, because maybe in the past when there was a different set of receivers here, where Brady was here, he didn't want it out because he didn't want guys to get their trousers in a bunch over who was being courted or talked to, guys who were already on the team. Maybe that's a cockamamie idea. The other one being, I don't want anyone to know what our business is. Now, though, in a different scenario, the Patriots see the upside and saying, oh, my God, they're talking to everybody. We better move up to get Chris Olave. We better move up to get whoever it is. So I think there's two ways of doing it. You can put your cards on the table or you can hide them. And the Patriots putting their cards on the table and just throwing them everywhere, Henry, I think is the point you're making. It's a giant misdirection. Everything's a possibility. Kyrie, what do you got for final thought here?
Absolutely. First of all, I just want to thank you, Tom, for really helping me feel welcome in this whole thing, both here and in training camp, man. But in regards to the receivers, the talk has definitely been right about like what do the Patriots need at receiver, and it's like he needs a security blanket, meaning Mac Jones, right? It's like he kind of already had that in Jacoby Myers. I mean, he's targeted him like 87,000 times last year. He was one of the top 10 third down converters in the league. But you need a better one, I would say. You need a guy who can separate and keep on separating, right? And so, like, I think it's not just about the speed, right? It's about getting a guy who can get open and get open down the field. And I think once you have that, you're going to see Mac Jones start pushing the ball a little bit more, because that's what he did in college when he had guys that could do that. And that brings me around to John Mechie, right? So if you're asking which Alabama receiver I could see most being here, it's him, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, Mac loved throwing to him down the field. They hooked up a lot, on fade routes, go routes, all that stuff. He's a good short area route runner in the red zone, and in those like third down situations, he can get open and kind of be that kind of security blanket kind of guy. He throws people out the club in terms of being a blocker, right? You get him out on the edge, on an end around or a screen or in the running game, and he's tossing dudes, off the field. And he was actually talking at the combine about how much pride he takes in that. The other thing that I would say is when it comes to these Alabama cats, when you talk to these receivers about like, oh yeah, like I met with the Patriots, and some of them are like, oh, it's intimidating, and like, oh yeah, it was really intense because I'm meeting with the Patriots, or like Chris Olave was saying, you know, like, yeah, they like asked me like deeper questions and kind of like probed about my background and stuff. I feel like in some ways, the Alabama guys, like, they already have, first of all, they're used to that kind of personality already with Nick Saban, but because Belichick and Saban talk so much, I feel like they kind of already know what they want to know about these Alabama guys, and the way they talk about meeting with the Patriots. Oh yeah, it was casual. We were just talking some film, talking some ball. It feels like there's a familiarity there that is not there mutually, right? For other guys that are outsiders, right?
Yeah, you got a guy from Arizona or Utah State. You don't know how well he's vetted on the other things, so you're going to push him. Here's a taste of what we're like. How does he respond? So I love the Mechie idea. Henry, 6 feet, 194. There's the injury to be concerned about.
Yeah, both those top Alabama receivers are coming off ACLs. And it's really nice that they say at the combine that everything's good and they'll be back by training camp. But how many times do we see players and agents push this message of health when it's not real?
I mean, they were doing it yesterday with Jameson. So like Jameson says like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'm going to, you know, it's like, I hope I'll be back, but I'm not sure. And later on that night, he's got a workout video with him rehabbing. It's like, oh yeah, he's ahead of schedule. It's like,
you can't go wrong with John Mechie in the second round. You can go wrong with him in the first.
Yes.
Agreed.
Exactly.
So, wow. Sorry, boys.
Meanwhile, there's the Edelman clone. I'll give you a second to catch your breath. The Edelman clone of Slade Bolden, who does literally everything that you'd think a Patriots receiver should do. I won't take more time, but you could Google him and you'll see he checks those boxes. He's not very good.
He so badly wants to be a Patriot.
Well, listen, fellas, this has been a lot of fun. We appreciate you, and we will definitely have you back again. I don't know how long we went, but I think we went a little bit over the time. Khari, go out and cover the combine. Henry, start writing. I'm going to get another coffee. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. See you soon, Khari. Bye.
See y'all.